Bristol's Exchange is a live music venue and a community benefit society, being a not-for-profit social enterprise owned and operated by its members. It has 2 event spaces with new PA systems funded by the Arts Council in 2020. It's much more than just a live music venue with cafe, record shop, studio and hosting other creative events. The Exchange opened its doors as a live music club venue in August 2012, and since opening they have played host to a wide array of artists, including the 1975, Johm, George Ezra, Rag and Bone Man, the Melvins, Fortet, Sleaford Mods and many more. The team behind the Exchange had previously ran the Croft since 2007. Before that, had experience running gigs, record labels, record shops and club nights, including Replay Records, Invada, Espionage and Dead Punk Promotions. Over the summer of 2016, the venue had a refit and the cafe shop opened in October 2016. September 2017, Specialist Subject Records opened on the first floor. In October 2018, the Exchange ran a community share campaign and 389 people invested and became part owners of the venue, helping to secure its future for years to come. Temporarily closed in March 2020 due to COVID, the Exchange has been streaming live music via YouTube.
Hi, I'm Rachel from Virtually Backstage and I'm here with Matt Oatridge from the Exchange in Bristol. Hi Matt, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi Rachel.
We're going to go talk about the venue.
Yeah.
Let's start right from the beginning. Can you give us a little bit of history about the Exchange?
Okay, the Exchange itself opened in 2012. At the time, we actually ran another venue in Bristol called the Croft, which so that's 3 of the founding directors basically ran that before from 2007, and then we opened the Exchange in 2012. And the big difference was that with the Exchange, we bought the freehold of the building rather than just renting it from a different landlord. So we wanted to make an attempt to secure our future a little bit more, not being at the mercy of someone else's. Yeah, basically started in 2012, a lot of gigs from the get-go and club nights, like some of the early bands to play there included the 1975 and Johm, about amongst others. I think both of those came in the first 20 events that actually happened down there. So they started off on the right foot, so to speak. And then more recently, in 2018, it became community owned. So basically at the moment, there's 399, in fact, different people who put in some money, and it's ran by an entity which is known as a community benefit society. And there's a few venues in the UK, just a handful, probably about 5 to 10 who are set up in this way, but it gives it a bit more longevity in terms of future planning, and also a bit more resilience when bad things happen, such as a global pandemic. Just thinking of one off the top of my head. So yeah. During that time, it's kind of evolved from being just a music venue, and now it has a cafe in it. Well, it does have a cafe in it. It doesn't get used, and the music venue doesn't get used. But cafe and a vegan kitchen there, and then there's a little record shop on the first floor that's run by Specialist Subject. And in the basement, there's a recording studio which is run by a guy called Joe. His name is Joe's Garage. So it's got a lot of up until March 2020, there was a lot of life in the building. It would be open from 7 in the morning and sometimes until 3 or 4 the next morning on the weekend. So it was very well used. Lots of things going on the whole time. Lots of events. And in fact, in 2019, we opened another small space in the basement as well. So the main stage on the ground floor is about 250 capacity, and the basement stage is more for local acts coming through, and that's 60 capacity. So
now having the second stage as well, but I think throughout the existence of the Exchange, you've been a huge support of local artists and smaller artists from around the UK. And I think we've seen a few of them in the film as well. Can people still just get in touch if they wanted to play there, obviously post-crisis? How does it work for artists that would like to play at the Exchange?
Yeah, so our programming is made up of a lot of different promoters. Really, we do promote, you know, a little bit of our program is in-house, but actually a lot of what goes on is external promoters. So when bands get in touch, we quite often, you know, that they'll quite often be interested in playing on a certain show, so we'll then just sort of pass it on to the right person. I mean, we're sort of really kind of invested into the sort of DIY culture. So in general, with local artists, we would suggest that a good way of doing it is for them to sort of become the programmer and become the promoter, and therefore take all of the money, you know, particularly with that, the small space downstairs being so affordable. You know, it makes it, you know, we don't actually charge a venue hire on the basement stage. So essentially it's a really good opportunity to sort of, you know, just because I guess the thing is that when I was young, I mean, this is, you know, when I was in bands, that was probably like the early 2000s, you'd quite often feel like, you know, because I think music genres, it's quite like important to be playing with bands who are quite similar, maybe, you know, share same values as you. You know, these things are quite important. And like it used to be back then, that you could just be thrown on a bill of free. You know, the only thing that kind of binded you was that you were all from Bristol and that you could all bring a few people. And then like each band would just play to their own sort of 15, 20 people audience who'd seen them play before, and it wasn't really doing anybody any favors. So I think being able to sort of, you know, curate yourself, kind of make sure you're playing with bands who are going to share audience, who will enjoy the other bands, you know, it's the way of building up your fan base. And really, you know, from a point of view of even financial, just the, I mean, you know, local bands, you know, majority of them is maybe nothing more than a hobby, or, you know, they aspire to be bigger, and for most of them it doesn't happen, and occasionally of course it does. But I mean, you know, you've always got costs, you know, the banner, you've got the rehearsal costs, your recording costs and what have you. And, you know, it can be a difference between sort of taking £20 from a flyer deal. I don't know if they exist anymore in Bristol, but that's what it used to be when I was young.
We've sort of reached the point now where, you know, lockdown's ongoing. Do you want to tell me a bit, like starting from back in March when it first happened, like what's the biggest effects that it's had, you know, for the venue? Has it really left you hanging, or do you see a light?
It sounds like a really strange thing to say, but like one of the first feelings was feeling grateful that we'd created sort of a resilient sort of structure like within the building. So like, you know, with the fact that we bought the building originally, and now the company that runs it is a community owned one, which had sort of financial resource where most venues didn't. Like most venues didn't really have any reserves. And to be honest, we started running venues in 2007, so what, 14 years. So probably in 11 of those 14 years we wouldn't have had anything to fall back on, and it just happened that it happened at a good time, really. And you know, one of the things that I did almost immediately was I became the Southwest coordinator for the Music Venue Trust.
Hey, I'm Hugo, the guitarist in band Nine Captains, based in Bristol, talking about the Exchange venue. We played the Exchange at the Metal to the Masses event. This was back in the beginning of 2020, I think, so just before the event happened. It's been a great venue. It's just one of those places where you sort of just get a really homely feeling, but also it's just got this energy. It feels really, really lovely being in there. I've seen many gigs there. I've seen loads of different bands. Went to Hellfest Festival there, I think in 2019. That was great fun too. The sound in there is always absolutely great. And we just had a really good time playing there. It was really interesting because at this point we'd only been a band for maybe half a year, about 6 months, and we've been playing a lot of floor shows, so without stage and often without foldback monitors and with a PA system that was, you know, fine. But getting to play the Exchange was absolutely brilliant. We just had so much control over what we could hear. I remember Justin, our bassist, turning around to me after a sort of quick sound check and going, "Oh, I can actually hear you this time. I can hear your vocals, I can hear your guitar playing." Which obviously, being on the other sides of the stage, normally you don't really get that at floor shows. It's an absolutely great venue to play. We really enjoyed it, and long live the Exchange.
the Exchange, or like possibly, or even smaller places like the Old England, then where are artists going to develop? These places have really got to be recognised as cultural places of significance, really.
Ollie Foxon, owner of Ampstack, leader of the band Warrior Pope. I've had the pleasure of playing the Exchange several times, at least twice, with Warrior Pope, and have attended countless gigs there. So many, I don't necessarily remember which ones were actually at the Croft. I've definitely seen High on Fire at the Exchange. Monolithian, Bismuth, Sonnance have all played there to my great pleasure. What I miss is being able to go to gigs and being able to play gigs.
Hi, I'm John Ashby. I'm the landlord of the Gryphon in Bristol City Centre. The Exchange, for me, has to be one of the most important live music venues in Bristol at the moment because of its relentless passion for live music. Having moved to Bristol in 2008, the Croft in Stokes Croft was the grassroots underground venue for me to go to experience bands that I'd never heard of before, as well as seeing headline bands that I knew and loved. Unfortunately, with its closure, it left a huge gap in the community for the alternative scene. So venues that were catering for heavy metal and rock music, unfortunately, were dwindling at that point, having lost the Junction as well a year or so before that. So for the people behind the Croft to take the legacy and support that they built up and transfer that to a new venue across the city was a fantastic move, and it's been paying off ever since. The eclectic mix of music that the Exchange supports is phenomenal. To have such a small venue catering for all of these different music genres, your heavy metal, your rock, but as well as your drum and bass, folk, ska, hip-hop, anything and everything, for a venue to achieve that is fantastic, and not many places can pull it off so well.
Hi, my name's Kev. I work for Fuelled By Cider. We organise and promote gigs and small festivals in the southwest, including over the years a number of events at the Exchange in Bristol. Our association with the Exchange kind of goes a bit further back than the Exchange itself. I knew Matt through the Eastern Cowboys Football Club in Bristol when he was involved in the Croft. Used to go to a lot of gigs there, like a lot of people. And when we started dabbling in gigs in Bristol, the Exchange was open by then, and Matt was the obvious person for us to call and speak to, because we knew what the Croft was all about, we knew what the Exchange was all about, and we knew that we'd enjoy working with them. The Exchange is actually the site of probably one of our best ever gigs, one of our first big gigs, and one of our best ever gigs was with the Dreadnoughts, the Surfing Turnips, the Skimpy Hitchers, back in 2014. It was a sellout, it was famous, it was legendary, and it kind of set us on the way to doing more gigs in Bristol, really, and also possibly cursed us a bit, because it made us think that promoting gigs was easier than it actually is.
I'm Chris Watson of Music Eye, presenter of Music Eye Radio on Froome FM 96.6 and Summer Valley FM 97.5. See more at Music Eye UK on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. This has been Still Live at the Exchange, a Music Expo UK presentation in association with White Noise Studios and KB Sangster Media Production. See you at a venue soon.